My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Samas, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Last Ball Drops. We have a very clean-shaven Damien, which was a bit of a surprise. I didn't expect to see that. And Carson, how are we doing, guys?
Doing well. Great day of tennis. Lots to talk about today.
Absolutely. I think there is no better place to start with. Probably, I think it was one of the first results that came in today, which was Emma Navarro getting pretty much dismantled in about an hour by Buzas Monero. Damien, what are your thoughts?
I mean, first of all, I didn't watch it. I think a lot of us were like kind of saying, Navarro's form this year is not that amazing. But then again, when a slam came in Australia, she was able to step it up. Obviously not the case this time. There were a few pretty like mind-boggling results, let's say, today. And that one is definitely part of it. Although mostly because of the extent of the beating that she took from Buzas Monero, rather than the fact that she lost. But yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't treating Emma too seriously anyway for this round Garros. But yeah, we're just not used to that. The last few slams, she's been always, out there competing. And basically, that's also one of the things she does best, right? And today, there was none of that, apparently.
No. Carson?
I agree with Damien. I wasn't necessarily taking her too seriously to make a deep run in this tournament. That being said, 6-love, 6-1 is a pretty terrible result, I feel like. It's a match that she's more than capable of winning. So it's a surprise for sure. And Damien mentioned that she's had good form in Grand Slams over the last year and a half, 2 years, basically. So it's a bit of a surprise. But in that regard, I don't know that anyone was picking her to maybe make the finals of this tournament. But
yeah, well, I was actually kind of hoping you were, because you had Navarro to win the AO, right? But you didn't fancy picking Navarro again to win the French, so no. I think finals of Australia, I think I did pick Sabalenka, which also did not work out very well. But
just the wrong American. I mean, you were very close.
Yeah.
The nationality was correct. The gender was correct.
Elena Rybakina coming through in 3 against Riera qualifier. 6-1, 4-6, 6-4. Carson, what do you think about Rybakina's chances this week?
I feel better about them after her title last week. It's good to see her back on the winning side of a draw. So this match was a little bit dicey, though, especially that second set. Not necessarily very clean tennis from her. Frankly, the third set wasn't either, but she finds a way to come through. And I mean, sometimes that's just the most important thing in the first couple of rounds here, just figuring out a way to win. And she did that today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, it was very important for her to get on the board with that title. Well, not get on the board as such, but get that title under her belt in Strasbourg last week. And she kind of had to fight through it today, didn't she, Damien?
Yeah, but it was, pretty much self-inflicted. There was that, I don't know, it was 4-3 in the second maybe game where Riera just hits like 4 slices and Rybakina sends everything long. And from there, obviously, it was much more difficult. I mean, to me, let's say the news of Elena's demise that some have been pushing, I think they're definitely exaggerating. Obviously, in the rankings right now, she's a little lower. but I do think we need to still count her in basically every single event, basically remember that she's there. And well, obviously the ranking is going to be worse because she barely played in the second half of last year. So I think, yeah, it's important to survive and get that switch from Strasbourg as well. Let's remember that she was playing there on Saturday. Probably not the easiest option to just come here and then 2 days later have to compete again, switch conditions and everything. So I'm hopeful for more. And up until 6-1 for 2, obviously this was looking like the most routine win that she could possibly get. So that the level is there, but there's still stuff to iron out. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I mean, first round of a slam, I think everyone's feeling that sort of like they're still trying to iron out the creases in a sense, but switching to this sort of format. Okay, I was actually just about, our producer actually just nailed that because I was literally about to come on to maybe the biggest talking point before the tournament started, which is Iga Swiatek. And she played her first round match against Shremkova today, coming through 3-3. Iga was a breakdown in the second. Carson.
Yeah, she's played much better here, but a win is a win, and I feel like we'll say that for a lot of players today. Some players had quite routine wins. Obviously, she's established a pretty high standard at Roland Garros, winning 4 of the past 5 titles. So regardless of her form over the last couple of months, I still think there's a lot of expectation for her. It's a win, not the cleanest win. Yeah, Shremkova is not necessarily the easiest opponent to play against either. She's going to give a lot to you, but Iga gets the win here.
Yeah, and it was quite interesting to see. Obviously, there's a huge amount of pressure on Swiatek at the moment. She doesn't even have her own quarter here for the first time in 4-5 years. So it's always going to be a bit of a challenge just trying to get back onto court and get through these early rounds. But she's been here for a long time, Damien, hasn't she? She arrived literally straight after her loss to Collins in Rome. She came straight here, didn't she?
Yeah, I think after Rome, there were definitely like 2 approaches she could have taken. One was just like go back to Poland, I don't know, train there, or basically just not look at a tennis court for a few days, which I think I would have done in her place. But obviously she knows herself the best. I thought that like all this build up, sitting at a tournament which you really want to win for like 2 weeks, for me, that would be torture. But obviously, yeah, she and her team, I mean, they made another decision. For now, it seems like it's fine. Like definitely wasn't panicking on the court. We're not really going to know until we see her coming up against one of the top players, whether like, the mindset things, whether they are all reset by now or not. But yeah, for now, obviously, it's not the type of win that she usually gets in Roland Garros round 1, which is usually just like 6-love, 6-1 against somebody. But Shremkova also did threaten, and I think even the 6-3, 6-3 is a little misleading. Like it easily could have been closer than this. So, just a good start, I guess. And we won't know really what Iga is made of at this Roland Garros until much later in the event.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree because we were kind of all expecting, as you said, that sort of like love and one sort of situation. But it's not an easy first round draw as she's had in years gone by, but still came through. And her round 2 opponent, Raducanu, also played today against Wang. Damien, obviously Raducanu had a medical timeout at the end of the first set when she was serving for it, but it seemed like it didn't really affect her that much in sets 2 and 3.
Yeah, I think regardless of like the potential physical issues, second round is going to be very difficult for her. Today, just nice to get through because obviously she built up some momentum for this finally. The Kasatkina win in Strasbourg and everything, and it would be just very disappointing to lose in the opening round after that, in a winnable matchup at the very least. But of course, now it's just going to be like a completely different challenge. Which actually is also kind of funny because didn't Swiatek play Shremkova in Australia in the second round and then Raducanu in the third round? So basically, she's repeating that same pattern. Well, in Australia, both matches were very lopsided. Now at Roland Garros, the first one wasn't that easy, but I think this one might be actually more straightforward.
Well, I could see it. I could see it kind of going both ways in a sense that it'd be a real test, like their match at Stuttgart last year, which was I think 7-6, 6-3, and that was actually a really strong battle. But what are your thoughts on this sort of matchup coming into their round 2 match, Carson?
I think it's a really good win for Emma. Wong has had a pretty good year so far. She's ranked, I believe, 43. So this was a pretty evenly ranked first round matchup. Both of them have played well, so it's a good win for her. As Damien mentioned, had a nice win last week in Strasbourg. So there's a lot of momentum coming into this. Certainly, this is going to be a different type of challenge for Emma, though. And I mean, there was a medical timeout. Hopefully, there's not any ongoing issues from that as they go into their next match, but there will be a couple days before then. Hopefully she can be healthy and we get a good match out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of see this being one tight set, one kind of not so tight set in terms of, going into this sort of matchup. We know that Iga's been dominant in the past. But I feel as though Emma can pose a threat for a certain period of time. But I think as you kind of get more into the match, it'll be more and more of a challenge to sustain that high level that Emma's going to have to bring to challenge Iga. But yeah, I see it kind of unless Iga brings, she doesn't turn up on the day and Emma's fully firing. But yeah, I just don't see it fully panning out for Raducanu, unfortunately, from my perspective, anyway.
I mean, to get Swiatek into any sort of like panic or whatever, I mean, you first have to actually put pressure on her. I don't know what Emma does it with. Like, that was also the Australian Open match. It's just super heavy strokes of both wings from Swiatek, and what the hell is Raducanu supposed to do? I do think a lot of her assets are just like taken away completely in this matchup, and it's difficult. Their Stuttgart matches were good, both of them. Indian Wells, Australia, not so much. Well, I mean, I guess I'm slightly more optimistic that we might get a match here than in Australia, which is pretty funny, but I guess that's where we are with Swiatek right now.
I do think we probably will get more of a matchup than we did in Australia.
The bar isn't high, so...
No, exactly. And just thinking about how Emma was serving then, the serves developed a lot since that point. Emma was struggling with double faults and... she hadn't really found her rhythm with her ground strokes. You could see if you look at the difference from her second round match with Anna Samova, she kind of handed it to her with unforced errors, and Raducanu just kind of grinding it down instead of hitting winners off the ground. And now she's kind of hitting a bigger ball now. So yeah, I kind of expect it to be a lot closer than it was in Australia, but still Swiatek comes through. We will go on to probably the most, I'd say, anticipated round 1 match on the women's side, which was Naomi Osaka versus Paula Badosa. It was Badosa that comes through in 3 sets after a very, very tight opening set. And then it kind of seemed like Osaka faded, didn't it, Carson? It was a bit of a shame that we didn't really have that Titanic ending that we were kind of hoping for.
Yeah, even though the scoreline was closer in the third set, 6-4, it's only a break. It never felt quite that close. It felt like Badosa was in control. Yeah, it's her first match in a little while, so I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. And Naomi Osaka has been playing fairly well on clay over the last few weeks, so I wasn't sure what to expect with this one. First set was absolutely brilliant from both of them, very tight, and then it just felt a bit one-sided from there. So great win for Badosa, and then Osaka will keep searching for that Grand Slam form, I guess.
Absolutely. And is Badosa really posing a threat to any of the guys in her quarter of the draw, or do you think she kind of, makes her way steadily through, Damien?
I mean, it's all about the health, really. I liked hearing this one quote recently from Paula, who basically said that, like, before the back injury flared up again, she thought that she was playing the best tennis of her career, which I think we've said on this channel so many times, that even though she was number 2 in the world in 2021 or whenever it was, it's like no comparison. What she was showing last year was by far the most real I've seen Badosa be in terms of like a Grand Slam contender. And yeah, she was putting in great efforts in all of these events, Wimbledon, US Open, and the likes. Now, of course, yeah, it's more about the health again. So if she remains healthy, why not? Australia, of course, she had a massive run as well. So I do like her chances as long as she has that. She was a wall in the last two sets, really. Obviously, Naomi's game is like so low margin on clay, so definitely took a lot to like try to get through her. And yeah, I mean, lovely to see Badosa playing like that again. Hopefully, it's not just gonna like break down in 2 rounds because of another back problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Australian Open champion, and as our producer said in a stream a couple of days ago, the person looking to complete the the calendar slam, Madison Keys conceding just 3 games to Daria Seville. Wasn't much of a contest, was it, Damien?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's like a massive clash of styles there. Madison trying to kill every single ball, Daria having all this like variety and like, I don't know, let's say counter punching-ish game. Yeah, I mean, some days it's going to look like that. The player who has all the power is redlining, and what can you do then? Of course, Madison has had French Open runs before, semifinals as well in 2018. It's not like she's horrible on clay. Before she wins Roland Garros, if she does win that, then we can start the conversation about the calendar slam. But I guess it is technically right. Yes, she is chasing that. It would be an absolute shocker to see her win the French, but I mean, Australia wasn't really expected either. So
no, exactly.
Let's go. I think what we said a few months ago as well was that like the pressure right now is very much off for Madison, because her entire career she was chasing that one thing and she got it. So as long as something insane doesn't pop up, like for example, she doesn't win this, and then there's that thought of the calendar Grand Slam, that's when maybe she can start feeling like a lot of pressure again. But right now she can just really go out and play super freely.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Keys is kind of chasing, well, she's chasing that calendar slam as we're talking about, but yeah, as Damien said it perfectly, she's kind of got the pressure off, doesn't she, Carson? She's just playing freely.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone necessarily has her in their top 5 contenders for this tournament. So there's definitely a hero or two of players above her. But she's made runs here in the past, semifinals, quarterfinals a couple of times, I believe, as well. So it's going to be interesting just to see her run here, and if there is any internalized pressure at all that she's putting on herself. I'm not sure it's necessarily coming from the outside, respectfully to her, but yeah, I think it will be really interesting to see her run here.
Absolutely. Sorry. We're gonna talk about someone that is played their final match today at the French Open and in her career. Caroline Garcia losing 6-4, 6-4 to Bernarda Pera. It was a very emotional day for the people of France. Obviously, there was that chance that Gasquet might be playing his last match ever in his career, but obviously we'll get to that later. But Garcia had that break point at 5-4 in the second to get back on level terms, but she couldn't quite take it, could she, Carson?
No, didn't quite, and then lost the match quite quickly after that 6-4, 6-4. I mean, this is, I think, what she's been quite open about dealing with as far as mental health and some dealing with bulimia as well last year is, it's a bittersweet situation. Obviously, hopefully we wish her health and happiness as she's taking this next step in her career. Of course, you'd always love someone's career to end with a win to get a title. So bittersweet, but yeah, tough match today. Just couldn't get it done, and wish her the best moving forward.
Yeah, and Garcia is obviously in this sort of tough spot, isn't she? And playing her last game today, she was very visibly upset, and you don't blame her. Obviously, she was such a good, such a prolific member of the tour for so long, but just couldn't quite get it down. Just looking at some seeds here that quite.
I'm a bit confused, by the way. Like, she didn't retire yet, right? I mean, it's her last Roland Garros match.
I thought this was her final match, or have I got that wrong? I thought this was her final match.
I mean, she said she still has a few tournaments to play or something like that.
A few weeks. Oh, right, a few weeks.
That's what she said before Roland Garros. Yeah, that she has some more, but like didn't really specify. But it wasn't her last match today.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that's my bad. That's my bad.
Unless she changes her mind, which after
maybe
lost farewell ceremony, she could maybe, I suppose. Obviously, it could be Wimbledon, like Janina Wickmeyer is going to do. Why not?
Yeah, but that's something that will make itself more clear.
I don't think she'll play through the end of the season, though.
No, I don't think she's planning to.
I think at the very, very least, like the U.S. Open would be the absolute latest that she continues.
Probably, yeah. I mean, if she's playing at the U.S. Open still, like, what else would she wait for, really? So, yeah, I think that's the max, yeah.
Brinkley will depend on her ranking as well. I feel like if she's made this decision to be done, maybe she plays as long as her ranking allows her to get into top tournaments, but I don't know that she would want to play qualifiers at this point.
Yeah, that it doesn't strike me as that kind of situation that she's going to go through qualifying to kind of say her goodbye, in a sense, to the tour. Just looking at both of the Kudermetova sisters playing Ostapenko and Tomova, Veronica goes through and Paulina goes out. Ostapenko coming through that Paulina match, 5-7, 6-love, 6-2, just conceding those two games in the last two sets. Ostapenko kind of has a draw where she could kind of make some headway, in a sense, don't you think, Damien?
First of all, chat, Ghosty, put some respect on Azarenka's name. US Open 2020 was perhaps, one of her best tournaments ever. Should have won that slam title as a mother. So that was very possible. Anyway, Ostapenko, yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest story regarding her draw is the fact that she might play Iga in the fourth round. But also there's Rybakina in the third round, I think. So, well, first of all, has to get there. As we can see, Dolhide in the second round, that doesn't sound too bad, but Ostapenko is just capable of losing any match anyway. Yeah, it's always a good story, but, with Ostapenko, I'm never looking too far into the future. And when she is in that fourth-round matchup against Swiatek, that's what we're going to be like, oh, yeah, okay, this is happening again. Stuttgart was a slight positive signal for Iga. But, of course, regardless if it's like Rybakina or Ostapenko, it will be pretty difficult for the poll. But yeah, even that Ostapenko-Rybakina clash, of course, that's something that I would like to see. But it's impossible to just say that, oh, yeah, Ostapenko is playing that. No, she's definitely making the third round. I'm not ready to say that ever.
Yeah, I think everyone agrees with you, to be honest. Like, I don't think I've ever seen someone have such a high bar and such a ability to lose like second round matches, in a sense. But looking at the other Kudermetova sister who did win today against Tomova, 7-5, 6-1. It's a good victory for Veronica, don't you think, Carson?
It is a good victory. Timova's had a couple of decent performances here on clay over the last, month and a half over this clay season. Kudermetova, though, feels like she's coming into her own a little bit. I remember watching her at the beginning of the year in, was it Brisbane she was in? Maybe Auckland, but just looked completely lost at the beginning of the year. And seems like over the last couple of months, she's found a little bit of form again, starting to look a little bit more confident in her own game. And as I've said about several players already, a win is a win getting into the second round here. It's a good chance for her. I don't remember who she's facing next.
I think she has Krejcikova in round 2, which kind of sets me up really nicely. Thank you. She really did.
Wimbledon round 1. Amazing match that decided the Wimbledon title.
Krejcikova played Maria today, 7-6, 6-3. She was. So I think I saw a tweet that was saying that Krejcikova really wasn't serving it like anywhere near at her best. She was kind of throwing in 50% serves because of a back issue, I believe, but I didn't quite get the full extent of that. Damien, did you catch any of that?
No, definitely not.
No, I didn't think you would have. I was just on the odd occasion that you would have, but
she played Tatiana Maria today, right? Yeah, so I guess it makes sense that like even without a serve on clay, the slice of Tatiana Maria, all the tools that she has, the old school style, it's not really going to be the most efficient. But yeah, I guess we're talking about some former French Open champions, which is easy to forget sometimes with Krejcikova and Ostapenko.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carson, looking towards Krejcikova versus...
Yeah, Gene, we remember that for sure. The producer, there's no match Barbora against Marketa. Marketa will have to win against Khmetova tomorrow first.
Yeah, I was about to say, am I losing my mind? But no.
No, it will be
yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah, maybe not quite the same level of match, but I think Krejcikova Kudermetova will still be a good one. I mean, look, it comes down to Krejcikova's health at this point and how quickly she gets into match form. Second set of this match was very tight and broke at the last possible moment to pull away in this one. So it was tight. Kudermetova is a little bit of a bigger hitter that she'll be facing. So yeah, it'll be tight, and then we can see the head-to-head on screen. Kudermetova with a 3-2 head-to-head lead. I don't think I knew that off the top of my head.
No.
Well, I didn't either, but of course the one match is very famous and it was absolutely atrocious. But in the end, the winner ended up taking the title. So sometimes maybe that's a lesson for us. That sometimes even if we're watching somebody struggle in the opening round, doesn't mean that in 12 days time, more or less, it will be the same.
Maybe it will happen to Krejcikova again. But long way to
Could
go
be,
before
could
that.
be.
Looking at some of the later results in the day, Clara Towson versus Magda Linette was kind of was talked about by Nick on our sort of WhatsApp group chat, wasn't it? Towson coming through 6-1 in the third. Always going to be a tough sort of matchup, don't you think, Carson?
Yeah, this was a pretty tough matchup. Really tight for a couple of sets. First two sets were good, and then Magda Linette just lost a bit of form on her forehand, especially in that third set. So Towson just a bit more consistent. Not the cleanest match from her. A little bit of an error fest from both of them struggling with their serves a little bit, but Towson comes through with a quite dominant third set, just didn't make many mistakes. Let Magda Linette hit it out of the lines, and she goes through into round 2.
Absolutely. And Towson's been in great form this year in general. And it's kind of boding towards another big slam run like she had at the AO, don't you think, Damien?
Well, the French less of a chance. I don't remember the draw that like that, but I think there was something pretty difficult somewhere in one of the opening rounds for her. Was it the Anisimova third round, maybe?
Oh,
And
maybe,
then
maybe she
Sabalenka
does
fourth
have
round.
Anisimova third round.
Is that? Yeah, is
Okay,
that true? I think it's it's an Anisimova third round potentially, and then Sabalenka fourth round, which of course she has already troubled Arena so much this season. But yeah, I probably wouldn't say that at the French. I'm treating her like super seriously, but it's been great to see her finally realizing her potential. Ghosty, yes. Unfortunately, in a matchup like this, I have to favor the younger, the more talented player, the more aggressive ball striker. I'm sorry to Magdalinet, the most talented Polish player ever, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. Alexandrova and Kazakina, both 15 to 20 seeds coming through today. Kazakina coming through against Siniakova, world number 1 in doubles in 3 sets. Obviously, Kazakina isn't known for her clay court prowess, but comes through today, didn't she, Carson?
She did. Siniakova is not the easiest challenge by any stretch of the imagination at all, so she'll feel good about this win. Yeah, second set was a little bit of a mess from what I saw in it, and then I didn't see much of the third set. I had flipped away, but yeah, she pulls out the 3-set victory here.
She's not someone that you're taking particularly seriously, I wouldn't imagine, Damien, just from your previous words. Or am I wrong? Or are you gonna say something really ridiculous?
About Kasatkina? No,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously she's like kind of like a Frances Tiafoe this year, as in like she wins one match at an event and then she loses the next one pretty much 90% of the time. It's definitely a drop off compared to last year, but she's had big runs at the French. Yeah, I mean, if the draw lines up for her nicely, why not a few rounds? I don't see why that would be a problem, but in terms of like winning the title or something like that, probably these days have gone. But maybe it can be her first big result under the Australian flag.
Looking at Alexandrova, kind of in a sticky patch of form. Played Bronzetti, but came through kind of comfortably 3 and 2. Alexandrova had a really strong start to the year. Obviously beat Sabalenka in Doha. Yes, Doha. Obviously, Clay is a completely different challenge, but she made a good start in Stuttgart, and she's kind of fallen off, hasn't she, Damien?
I don't know. I mean, it's Alexandrova. She's gonna get her wins sometime, in the season, and she's also gonna get her slumps. I basically treat her like Ostapenko for the most part. She can beat anybody, she can lose to anybody. Basically, I don't know. Was it last year at Wimbledon that she had that match when she hit 90 plus unforced errors and still won? It's volume hitter, Ghosty called it the other day. And Alexandrova definitely belongs in that category. In fact, I would say she's pretty much leading it. So always a dangerous player, but first it's important to have her get through these rounds. I think, in fact, for a long while, she had this infamous record of like not making a Grand Slam round 3 or something like that. Then, of course, recently corrected that. But yeah, I mean, good for her to get through against a pretty consistent grinder, I suppose.
We're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and we're going to cover both British players and their results. Jodie Burrage played Danielle Collins in a match that kind of was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I kind of turned it on, like, all respect to Jodie Burrage, kind of thinking this will be 2-1, and then in about an hour and I'll turn it over. But yeah, I mean, first set, Burrage served for the first set, didn't she, Carson?
She did. And unfortunately was not able to do it, and then had a bit of a terrible tiebreak. It was 7-1 in the first set tiebreak, and then Collins, though it stayed close relatively close in the second set, only one break difference in between them. It felt like Collins was in control by that point. Clay courts are not Daniela's favorite surface by any stretch of the imagination, but she is the better player today and moves on.
They're not Danielle's favorite surface, and they're even less of Jodie Barge's favorite surface, wouldn't you think, Damien?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, in terms of the men, I think we've seen a lot of good Brits on clay. In terms of the women, it's been a little tougher, I suppose. But, now Bolter and Raducanu getting some wins. I didn't really pay too much attention to Burge against Collins today. I guess I just assumed it would be much easier than it was. But, yeah, indeed, Jodie doesn't have too much experience playing on the dirt.
Yeah, and Bolter obviously took a set to kind of figure out Carole Munet, 6-7, 6-1, 6-1. Bolter looked a lot more assured after she kind of got that early break in the second set, and it reminded me a little of the Siniakova match in Madrid, where she lost the first set and then kind of found her feet to kind of win the next two sets pretty comfortably. Damien.
To be honest with you, I mean, I didn't watch that either. I think, well, Katie just won the WTA 125, and good for her. Clytie Bolter or whatever. And sure, I mean, I'm just not going to be too interested yet in her clay court efforts.
Carson, anything that Damien didn't say with that immaculate description that you would like to add?
I mean, the last two sets were great. First one, I mean, you could tell she was probably the better player of the two, but just could not make the shots that she needed to. So I think the second and third sets a little more indicative of her performance today.
Absolutely. Just looking if there's anything else that kind of sticks out to you guys. Wins for Tomanovic, Christiane Montgomery. Samsonova comes through against Sheriff, 7-6, 6-2. Samsonova's kind of a someone that could sneak under the radar potentially, Carson.
Yeah, she's had a couple of nice runs, so she's a little bit streaky. Big hitter though, but a win against Mayer Sharif is not a bad win at all on clay, so I think she'll feel pretty good about her performance today.
Yeah, obviously making the final of Strasbourg with Rybakina last week. Good to keep that sort of momentum going. Obviously didn't lift the title, but yeah, good momentum building for Samsonova, don't you think, Damien?
Yeah, obviously, given that she was playing Sheriff, a clay specialist, right after Strasbourg, handling the same kind of transition as Rybakina, that could have been a little more difficult, maybe, but it wasn't. So indeed, I think Vanch said it maybe yesterday on either on WT, on Last Ball Drops yesterday, or maybe on an episode we recorded on the weekends, that like Samsonova is the kind of player who usually wins the WTA 500 just the week before a slam, and then she loses early in that one. So, well, I guess she's trying to reverse that pattern now.
Yes, and last three on the women's side, obviously, Jean came through against Begu, who retired in the third at 3-love. It looked rough with Begu serving and then pulled up after trying to make a second serve and was pulled a medical timeout and couldn't continue after that, unfortunately. Also wins for Diolhide against Minen, which was actually a pretty good result for her, coming through in 3, and Taylor Townsend losing 3 and 2 to Chocharito. That is all for the women, and now it's Damien's favorite time where we get to talk about men. And
finally,
yeah, I know he's been waiting up. I know I kind of dragged out as long as I could, so just make Damien suffer.
We really didn't need to talk about every single match, to be honest.
We'll start with probably I know probably Damien's match that he didn't watch completely, but we'll start with Sinner versus Rindic Nash. Third set got tight, didn't it, Damien?
Sure, probably. I mean, I wasn't really paying attention. Obviously, it's a waste of time, in my opinion. It's actually the biggest problem of the night matches as well, that they just put stuff like that there that it's like pretty much guaranteed not to be tight. Well, it's a shame that Arthur wasn't able to get that double break lead to completion in the third set. Of course, his season has been absolutely tragic. From what from what people told me, let's say on Twitter and the likes, I think that he still probably performed much better than the entire campaign. I loved that tweet that he posted like yesterday or today, maybe in the morning, where he was just putting the photo of Sinner and the Pope and saying, miracles do happen or something like that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how religious you guys are, but personally, I think that you have to kind of help out the miracle. And of course, blowing the double break lead in the third set was not necessarily that.
Yes. It kind of got very interesting. Rindic Nash kind of really turned it on for about 4 games. And then it seemed like the occasion got to him, didn't it, Carson?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're up 4-love in a set, you really, really hope that you can put that one away. It was not to be in the third set. He didn't play particularly terribly in the first 2 sets either. Like, he was fine, but Sinner was a step above him, and you could tell. And then beginning of the third set happened, and he just started unleashing it. Sinner maybe had a slight drop off for 5 or 10 minutes, and then there was that one ball that Sinner hit that hit the tape, and then just like dropped down right away. And like from that point on, it felt like Sinner was going to come back and that he was going to find a way to win it in a third. He ends up doing it. I think Rinderknecht will regret not pushing it to a fourth, though.
Yeah, and I think even on break point at 5-all in the third, Rinderknecht could have probably done more with the smash, but I'm saying that sat here and Rinderknecht was out there playing, so I could say that all I want. Gasquet obviously potentially playing his last match of his career against Altmayer, the wild card. It was close they were kind of exchanging blows for the first 2 sets, and then Gasquet just completely outplayed him, and Altmayer went completely mentally, didn't he, Carson?
Yeah, and Altmayer kind of just lost his mind, which he has a tendency to do, unfortunately. So third set was after Altmayer cramped. And maybe was dealing with some medical issues outside of that as well, but Gasquet just put it away. It was even still a little bit spicy for a few moments in the third set, and then, fourth set, there's just not much to talk about it.
Yeah, and I know if Damien doesn't have any thoughts on this match, I'm actually going to be really angry at him, but the biggest... No, sorry. I'm about to talk about a different match. Sorry.
No. Obviously, it's pretty tough to talk about the match in itself, but in terms of the story, I am scared for Gasquet, because in a way, this is already good send-off for him, right? Just to get a win. Tough scenario for Terence for sure to kind of like have to retire the guy, or probably not in this case. I do think Gasquet obviously is a dinosaur at this stage, but he was able to produce some magic last year against George in the opening round. He was able to beat Arnaldi this season, was it? Van de Zandschulp. So, even though he didn't play for 2 months, to get a win here, it's fantastic. And actually, all of the French Musketeers, the new version, the 21st century, they've had pretty nice send-offs, as in they produce a win you probably don't expect. with this one, I guess there was a feeling that, like, yeah, there might be some sort of retirement magic. It's not quite as big as when Tsonga almost beat Ruth on these courts, which was just incredible in 2022. But yeah, now I'm just really worried about how this second round match is going to look, because this is a good send-off, but it might just get completely dramatic if Richie loses like 1-1-1, which is usually how he loses to like guys like that.
I was about to say, are there any predictions on how many games Gasquet wins in his round 2 match?
Playing Sinner, 5, 4.
I don't think he's going to win a set, for sure.
No.
Oh,
there might be.
Come on, obviously not.
No, I think maybe there's one set where he's really inspired and is able to win 4 games, but I think it's going to be a couple of sets where it's like 1-2.
Maybe we can talk about like whether he can combine, his all games from 3 sets into at least a set. So like at least 6. Like that. That's probably a good,
more or less than 6.
That's a good bar for him to clear, I think. Yeah. Like if he gets that, that's already pretty decent. I mean, it is what it is, right? He's not at his prime, obviously, and he's going to be facing an absolute monster. Rinderknecht has the tools to put pressure on Yannick. Got Ricci right now. I'm not really sure. By the way, what is the tweet that you're referring to, Jake, about Atman from Jose?
We're going to move on to the biggest ranking upset of the day, with Altmayer taking out the number 4 seed in Fritz. Altmayer had all the answers today, didn't he, Damien?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, he loves a top 10 upset, especially at the French. 5-7 against the top 10 now. I think he was like 4-2 or maybe even 4-1 at some point. 4-2, I think. And then at the French, of course, Sinner in 2023, Berrettini in 2020, and Fritz is just Taylor Fritz always, very good ball striker. But when he has to mix it up, do something more, he just kind of wants to play the same point over and over again. And Altmayer has such a good skill set to make use of that, right? He just sits back behind the baseline, waits for his chance, pounces, turns defense into offense. Moves Taylor around as well, which I think Fritz commented on after the match as well, that his movement is pretty poor the last few weeks. He doesn't really know what the reason for that is. Well, it's clay, Taylor. I have to tell you that you're playing on a surface where it was never really that good. Although, of course, I know what he means. It's definitely worse than it was in 2024-23. He hasn't been in the best match rhythm either. So, it's not really a big upset, but obviously ranking-wise, it's a big story for Daniel, the biggest win of his career in terms of the sheer numbers. And also because of that whole section being, so beautiful right now. We've got Kopshiva against Altmayer and Medjedovic against Juan Manuel Cerundolo. And one of them will make the 4th round. I mean, that section, I'm just going to be watching, from the first page to the last. And thank you for this, Roland Garros. At least this is going to be, chaotic, but also absolutely beautiful. So I really can't wait for these next 2 matches. That's for sure. And Jake, you said that Jose said that Terence's performance was pathetic. Well, he definitely didn't handle the occasion. So if you think that's pathetic, I guess, okay. Yeah, sure.
Am I wrong?
Yeah.
And sorry, with this loss for Taylor, it means he now loses his own section for Wimbledon, right? He's got that title to defend in Eastbourne, and I don't know, did he play? He didn't play Queens last year, did he?
Taylor? I don't remember.
No. But it means he loses his top 4 placing. It's not been a great season for Taylor in terms of consistency, has it, Carlson?
It hasn't been. Some of that is due to injuries, other health issues, but when he has been on court, he hasn't looked very consistent. And Damien alluded to this, but there's kind of one game plan for him. And if that game plan isn't working, it's consistently an issue for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Alcaraz obviously comes through very easily. There's not much to talk about there. It was pretty bog standard from Alcaraz. No real threat from Scipieri unless Damien has something erratic to say.
No, not really. I mean, yeah, I also didn't watch that one. I think, like Keen said in the chat like 20 minutes ago, it's going to be a while before I start watching Sinner Alcaraz at this event.
Wins for Gaston, Popperin, and Kemsmanovic. Bias continues his pretty poor run on French clay. Was 2 sets to love up, and then poof, disappeared. Casper Ruud obviously won the title in Madrid on the clay, and now obviously 2-time finalist, and play Ramos Vinolas. Carson, did you catch any of this one?
Very little of it. This was one of those matches that I thought was going to go away, and it did in this round. So, yeah, I mean, I do believe that this is Albert's final match of his career. He's retiring here at Roland Garros. So, another player that's moving on. Wish him the best moving forward.
Actually, what, Ramos Vinolas? No. Ramos Vinolas is also like it's indefinite. He said that he will retire this season, but we don't know when.
Oh, I thought at some point he did confirm that it would be at Roland Garros. Maybe not.
I mean, maybe something changed over the course of like the day, but
you have to remember, Carson, you're talking to the tennis encyclopedia, so
the encyclopedia hasn't been updated. So if that was something that arrived today in the news, I don't know it. But in terms of, the previous plans before this event for Ramos Vinolas, it was definitely to retire later in the season. But obviously last match at Roland Garros. We can also assume, I think, safely last match at the Slam.
Yes.
There's an allegation that I've seen some of every match, which is not completely true. There's a few that I didn't get to see of, but
like 5 out of the 40 something. Yeah.
Hey, that's what multi-view is for. So
I'm curious. Do you guys like pick one match and stick to it, or do you flick like between?
I mean, at this event in the first week, it would be ridiculous to try to watch one match and then stick to it only. No, that's just not how Grand Slams are done.
Mm-hmm. Especially the first couple of rounds. Yeah. Like you have to bounce around. The third round, maybe there's a match in between a couple of seeded players that you're like, this is going to be really interesting. But first and second round, you're just drinking from a fire hose, basically. So you just have to bounce around.
That's a very good analogy. I like that analogy, actually. Both Holger Rune and, as you know, we'll start with Steph. I will hold my hands up. I thought Steph was going to lose this in 5, and I believe Brenner also thought he was going to lose this in 5. But Steph actually made pretty light work of Edgebury, didn't he, Damien?
Yeah, I mean, I think our take on like the yesterday last ball drops or wherever with Vanch was definitely different. I think remembering that Tsitsipas Echeverry encounter in Monte Carlo, and kind of just overall Tome doesn't have that, I don't know, that ability to get out on the court and, hunt the backhand, just go after it, even though he has a pretty heavy forehand, obviously, and a good serve. So, yeah, it seemed like one where, like, Stefanos, with his all-round game that he pretty much shows on clay every single season, had a good chance there. Still has a pretty nice section for him to reach that Alcaraz 4th round and then promptly lose to Carlos again for the 3rd year in a row at the French. So good for him to obviously survive this in 3 as, playing a clay court specialist, playing a former quarterfinalist. It definitely didn't have to be as easy as he made it seem. But it's also not one of these opponents, I think, who just will very much punish the opponent's weaknesses in a way that you need to do against Steph.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of agree. I agree actually with Gene's statement that Edgebury is very one-dimensional in a sense. He has that, doesn't have that much variety to his game, does he, Carson?
No, there's not a ton of variety. It is one-dimensional. Gene makes a great point there, but yeah, and today that wasn't necessarily great. He's played much better than that at points this season, even, I think, but it was more than good enough.
Yeah. Kind of. Ghosty literally just put that in chat. I was literally about to say this. Maybe the biggest shock of the day, just in terms of tennis-wise, Cerundolo knocked out in straights. Damien's feeling good about his power rankings right about now.
I think what Keen said earlier in the chat, by the way, is ridiculous. That putting Cerundolo ahead of Fizz right now is like it was a horrible idea or something like that. We cannot judge these like based on what happens only, right? It's important, but also like sure, at the time, I do actually think that Cerundolo had a better chance of beating some of the bigger guys because Arthur is not really capable of like sustaining a high level over the course of a 5-setter. Fran is. Why today it didn't work out? I mean, I don't really know what to tell you, to be honest, because maybe the pressure of like having that amazing clay season and having like expectations for the first time going into the French, maybe that hit him for whatever reason. I think that he wasn't even like outrageously poor. I think if you want to think of a bad Cerundolo performance, which basically doesn't happen in 25, but let's go back to the previous seasons. Usually it would be like, 60 unforced errors or whatever. It wasn't like that. I mean, he just looked so ordinary compared to Diallo. So like there was no difference between them in a way. Like you couldn't see that, oh yeah, this is the guy who's been in this special form this entire swing. And that's I guess is that was like the biggest loss, I suppose, for Fran. Also later on you started seeing a lot of that like sloppy footwork that he tends to have when he just turns off mentally and just starts being very lethargic. Yeah, I mean, I would probably say that this is the biggest shock we've seen so far. It like this fairy tale of Fran Cerundolo playing amazing tennis for 4 months straight. It had to end somewhere, but it's just such a disappointment for him that it happens here at the event, which was supposed to be, if not, just another 4th round like the last couple of editions, maybe even more. And yeah, I mean, this was a result that we might not see again for the entire 2 weeks in terms of the shock value.
Yeah, and I feel as though it's really tough. Cerundolo's put so much into the last like 2 or 3 months in a sense that it's almost like it all caught up to him in that these next 2 weeks was such like, this was like, it was all building up to this tournament, and this was his moment to kind of make that huge run, make that leap, even make like push for like a quarterfinal or a semi of a slam, and it kind of just didn't really come together today for Fran. Diallo had, can blow really hot and cold. I think, he can sometimes play really, really, really well, especially that forehand, which can be an absolute weapon, but he's not that experienced on the clay. Made a very good run in Madrid, but Madrid's conditions compared to Roland Garros conditions are very different. But yeah, it was tough for Cerundolo today, but he's just got to, he's a very good grass court player, and he's still got to think that he's still in this massively impressive form, and he's got to keep going, right, Damien? Right, Carson, sorry.
Yeah, he's still got a chance. This is not the end of his season. He doesn't need to go into mental spiral over this. It's a bad loss, but credit to Diallo. He played very well today against a very tough opponent. And you mentioned he gets hot sometimes. Today was one of those days. He just didn't miss a lot. So credit to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it is a little, though, like in terms of the ATP 1000 events especially, his favorites have gone, right? I mean, he's probably not going to do that well in Canada, Cincy, Shanghai, Paris, as in the first 5. Roland Garros round 1. He's still top 10 in the race, but probably won't be after Paris. gonna be difficult to stay there. It's it's a disappointment on many levels, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But the lesser Cerundolo, the younger Cerundolo, still in the event.
Who was it? Yeah, Sean literally just said you didn't specify which Cerundolo in your power rankings.
Oh, yeah, I definitely meant Juanma as my number 9, especially when we were doing that. I don't think he was even like he was probably in the second round of qualifying at the time.
Yeah. Wins for Korda, Davidovich for Kina, and Holger Rune. Any sort of comments? Don't shout once.
Davidovich for Kina and Rune, both of them had not easy challenges today against Spanish players. Rune dropped the first set in a tiebreak, but he held his composure after that. Sometimes he can mentally spiral of his own doing in situations like that. So kept it together today. Pulls out a win in 4 sets that maybe a little bit longer than he would have liked. The match was a little over 3 hours long.
Yeah, and moving to Davidovich for Kina, he was actually a break down in the 4th to Ruiz, I believe, wasn't he, Damien?
Yeah. Third set he served for it, was kind of, I don't want to say showboating, but if you remember the shot he hit against Hurkacz at Wimbledon one year, and then the match got very interesting. It was like a tweener +1 forehand. And, it's a situation where, okay, he's in trouble, but I think he doesn't go for some of the shots that he did in that game. So obviously, it's a classic Davidovich Fokina moment, but he comes back to win it. They're not literally like, that similar as players, I guess. They have a lot of the same kind of like creativity. And I think ADF for now, at least, is just such a, much more potent player. So in the long run, definitely it's, it was, let's say he was the deserved winner, but still made it a little bit more tricky for himself maybe than it should have been, and not a bad Grand Slam debut for Llamas Ruiz at all either.
Someone that I'm kind of interested to see how the rest of the season pans out in Wawrinka. Obviously took a wild card to come into the French, and he played a really solid first set against Fernley, but then kind of faded away. Is this the last time we're going to see him at the French, Carson? Obviously won the title in 2015, former champion.
It's tough to say. It seems like he still loves playing tennis. So, but I mean, at his age, you never know. It's probably more of a week-to-week decision than he lets on about how long he wants to continue to play. So, I mean, good to see him here and continuing to play. First set was fine, and then he faded a bit after that. So, is it his last one? I guess I don't really know. It's an obvious statement, but each year it becomes more likely that he won't be back here. So he's one of those players. I'm just enjoying every chance I do get to watch him, because I know there's probably not a dozen more chances to see him in slams.
Today he said something interesting about that, basically that like even if he gets a wild card next year, if his ranking, if his form doesn't improve, he might just not take it at all, because he thinks that he cannot like show up next year with this level or even lower than this, even if they gave him the wild card. So he doesn't want to do like a Venus Williams type of thing. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair. Obviously next year he would be 41. Today, by the way, he was trying to be the second player in the last 50 editions to win a match at Roland Garros aged over 40 after, yes, Ivo Karlovic, yes.
Just have to sneak him in. I have to always sneak him in.
I didn't even have to. It's a very relevant stat that he beat then 37-year-old Feliciano Lopez in 2019. It's absolutely, I mean, everybody remembers what a memorable match, and yeah, fantastic. Unfortunately, not everybody can win a match over 40 at Roland Garros. Some people did in the 70s, but that was a different era.
Two Frenchmen getting through in Humbert and Fils. Humbert is not known for is one of the Frenchmen not known for his clay court sort of prowess. But Connell, not really a a big stretch of the imagination for him. Fils and Jarry a bit more of a challenge, wouldn't you say, Damien?
Sure. This was Fils was very capable of closing it out in 3. It was a very error-heavy match from both players, but I guess that's what Jarry makes you go through. Like, if you're facing Jarry in the opening round, I guess that's a classic example of a match you just want to survive. And Fils did just that, so that's good. I don't know if this is, an example of a match that he doesn't win last year. Of course, this is his first Roland Garros win, but he was playing very different opponents before. Arnaldi, Davidovich, Fokina. So I don't know if I can compare it to that. I think Australia, maybe he was getting some much better wins in the opening 2 rounds against big hitters, but then, of course, got injured. Would be amazing for Artur to produce his first massive run at the Slam here. Of course, his chances are somewhat limited given that he's playing Sinner in the forefront potentially. But if he can just reach there and play a very good match against Yannick, I think that's already a good result. So just gotta get through these first few moments. And I do think his draw to get to Yannick is pretty difficult. So Jarry, I don't care if he's ranked 150 or 20. He's always not an easy opponent in the opening rounds just because he's not going to allow you to play your game.
And Carson, do you feel as though Jarry, how long do you think it takes Jarry to sort of rebuild that sort of ranking, dropping outside the world's, I think, what is he, 149 or 148? How long does it take him to get back into that sort of main draw Slam contention, into the 90s, into the 80s in terms of ranking, right?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I have a great answer for that. The form this year hasn't exactly been great, and he'll still have a lot of second round points to defend at a lot of events. The 1000s, just because of where his ranking was, and that's not a given for him. So he is starting to near the floor of where he can fall to, but if the form doesn't improve, he's not going to be gaining points for a while either.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for this either, but I will say this. When he came back after the suspension, he got back to 150-ish in the rankings so quickly, and then he was there for about a year and a half. He just got stuck there, and that's where he is right now. With a playstyle like this, tough to combine, I guess, matches into wins and deep runs. It's possible that he will not be able to return for a while.
Yeah, well, they breaking the top 100 is one of the toughest things to do, right? All those players ranked between 80 and 120 have all said it, that breaking the top 100 is so tough to do because of points gap and points difference and and challenges, and but we'll see,
especially now that they changed the point distribution at the start of the 2024 season, less in challengers round by round, more in the ATP Tour, more in Grand Slams. It was already true before, but you can very feasibly just play, I don't know, win 40% of your matches on the main tour, and you're not even struggling to stay in the top 100. You really don't need to be doing anything amazing on the main tour to stay within the top 100. So for many players, it's easier to get there. It's easier to stay there than to get there.
Wins for Lehechka, Ofner, Kachanov. None of these are all pretty routine. Ofner Struff could have had some potential to go 5, but Ofner sealed it in 4, didn't he, Damien?
Yeah, this was one where the form is just such a mismatch. Of course, Struff has won 1 match since Marseille, so since middle of February. Ofner kind of the best level of his career, maybe, after coming back after these surgeries. I was thinking last year that he was just going to end this ATP Tour prime, right away. And now he's back and suddenly playing some very real tennis. Very good. That also we're going to have Ofner Khachanov in the second round, because that was already a quarterfinal in Geneva and Sebastian won it. Very good results at the French the last 2 seasons for him as well. 23, 4th round last year, 3rd round, I believe, when he came back from 0-2, I think, in 2 consecutive matches. So, form-wise, this was definitely an edge for him. I thought that it might be a little bit more difficult than this, though, because you just get 2 ball bashers out there, and I guess it's always going to be somewhat even. But yeah, Ofner Khachanov obviously now after Geneva, he has to be feeling pretty confident that he can travel at least again.
Yeah. Moving on to someone that is kind of in a similar situation to Struff in Pedro Martinez, who is in some pretty rotten form at the moment. And he played Denis Shapovalov, and Shapovalov made very light work, winning just 5 games. Carson?
I was a bit surprised by this one. Martinez has not been playing great by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought that this was a place where Shapovalov hasn't necessarily been fantastic either over the last couple of months. So thought it was a place where he could, at the very least, look decent. But that was not a thing at all today. So it was quite straightforward. Good win for Denis Shapovalov. Martinez, time to go back to the drawing board and figure out some new answers, because what he's got right now, it's just not working.
No, absolutely not. It's not working for him. Jake, thank you. I appreciate it. Final sort of results that came in today. Qualifier, Misolic beat Boo in 4. Munar beat Ugo Carabelli in 3, which was some match that I thought could have been a bit closer. Damien's laughing. I don't know what Damien's laughing at.
No, not you.
And then finally, Greek Sport beat Giron in 4. Greek Sport, it was actually quite an entertaining match towards the end. Giron might have thought he could have taken it to a 5th, but wasn't to be, was it, Carson?
No, this was a fairly decent level in between these two. Greek Sports had overall, I would say, a decent clay court run. So good for him to get a win here and move on. Yeah, Marco's had his chances to push this to a 5th. Just wasn't able to close the deal in the 4th set. So Greek Sport moves on.
I'm really interested to hear Damien's thoughts on whatever he's thinking about right now, whether tennis related or not.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of talent, he kind of serves as Fran Cerundolo in this draw now, right? Because Fran was supposed to be the threat to Novak, to Zverev, and now I guess talent has to take over. Did Giron have to be like a very easy opener? Probably not, but in clay, of course, you would expect, especially with the form that the Dutchman has been in this season, that he kind of has to take it. So, job's done. And now he avoids Fran Cerundolo in the 2nd round. So, the opportunity is now kind of in his hands, the one that was in France. And last year he played Zverev, obviously, at the, was it 400 was against Rune. So it was 1 round earlier than they would meet this time. That was again in the 3rd round. And he led 4-1 with a double break in the 5th. He also beat Zverev in Indian Wells. He was serving for the match against Zverev in Munich. So, yeah, I think in many ways he can kind of serve as what we imagined Fran Cerundolo would be in this draw.
Great. That is all the matches from today. And before we end, I would like one match from tomorrow that both of you are looking forward to, and you can't say
one thing first.
Match.
Philip, where is the shout out to Filip Misolic, who is going to play Denis Shapovalov and had a pristine performance today, clutching out the 3rd set and just, once more, what a beautiful forehand it is. Not that much pace, it's not Joao Fonseca, but the precision when spreading the court, fantastic. Misolic, Shapovalov, 2nd round, I think it's going to be very, very good.
I don't have anything else to say. Damien took the words right out of my mouth. So tomorrow, one match from each of you, please, that you're very much looking forward to tomorrow. You can't say the same match. So I can guarantee you, I'm going to predict Carson says Fonseca, Hurkacz, and then Damien says something else. Carson, we'll start with you.
I'll start. That match that you thought I would mention, I think it will be a good one. I think Alexander Muller and Jakub Menchik will be a pretty good match. That's second on court 14. I'm looking forward to that one. Menchik is not at his best on clay. Muller's he played well, been playing well. So I think that one's going to be maybe a spot to slip up, but Menchik should win it.
And
I got Menchik Miller shout, yeah. Definitely. I think that's very close to being a 50-50 one. So that might be the best match of tomorrow, actually. Arnaldi Felix, I guess I'm probably going to watch it too. Hurkacz Fonseca, I've kind of gotten into this weird mindset with Joao the last 2-3 weeks where I'm like, okay, yeah, you're not going to be too good this slow clay swing. I'm going to start watching you again in like 2-3 weeks. I do think Hurkacz is actually a small favorite there. But of course, it's pretty exciting. There are easier seeds for Fonseca to play. I think if he got like Tsitsipas, Rublev, I think he would have beaten them. But Hurkacz, just stylistically, you have to be like so on point and basically think clearly on your serve to keep up. And also, defense is pretty nice. So I do think he's probably going to struggle there, at least, in terms of unless maybe the last 2 weeks of practicing have brought in some amazing results. No idea. But yeah, these are probably the three main ones, I think, on the men's side. Like they're all pretty much 50-50, and they include, I think, all of them, and maybe not a high seed, but a seed that is very vulnerable.
Is there any sort of hangover, do you feel, for Hurkacz after the Novak loss?
Could be. I mean, 2 days of rest, it's probably not physically, but mentally we saw that it hit him very hard, right, to lose this one. So it could be. I think that's also a factor that you kind of have to watch out for tomorrow, yeah.
Absolutely. And just before we wrap up, yeah, we do have 2 watch-alongs for tomorrow. Zverev versus Leonard Tien and Hurkacz versus Fonseca. So feel free to join us for those. Unless our producer wants anything else, I think that is all from us here tonight.
You didn't ask us about the women's matches favorites for tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. You make a good point.
I don't know if I have one, but I guess.
Okay, great. Thanks for bringing that up if you don't have one. Actually, instead of, Carson can give me one and I'll give one if you can answer Ghosty's question, please, Damien.
Yeah, I think on the women's side, Magdalena Frek takes on Ons Jabeur. That could be a fun one, I think. Ons is coming back from a little bit more time off from injury, so yeah, she will be looking for a win here at a place that she's played well in the past. So I think that could be a spot to look for an upset tomorrow.
Absolutely. I was actually going to say that one, but I'm actually going to save the Vondrousova match purely because I'm interested to see how Vondrousova does in her first tournament back after a long time away from the tour. How's Fonseca's returning it? I mean, it's a
so that was the question. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big question considering obviously Hubie's such a big server on the tour. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Fonseca's obviously a great returner, but with someone that's as consistent as Hurkacz, if he's firing, as well as he'd want to, I think he might struggle. I have Hurkacz as favorite for this one. I'm just like 55-45. Hurkacz obviously just kind of coming back into form. Obviously made the semis of Rome, but no, quarters of Rome. Sorry, not semis. But yeah, Damien, what do you think?
Yeah, I second that for sure. I think the reason why I'm maybe worried about the Hurkacz serve for Fonseca in that match is more like how Joao himself is going to hold up on serve. Just the fact that he doesn't have that sort of like focus and the ability to construct points to get through every single service game and keep up with what Hurkacz will be doing. His reactions, I think, are definitely okay on return. His block return has been getting better, maybe less useful on clay, but still. On second serve return, though, I mean, obviously he's very often in 2 minds, whether to start the point or whether to try to go for something very ballsy. And that could also lead to his demise tomorrow. We will see. Definitely going to be that serve return game tomorrow is probably not his friend. So maybe if he can counteract that by just having an awesome serving day, maybe that would be kind of how he wins the match, really. And what else was there? Oh yeah, Todoni Pegula, definitely my favorite match on the women's side tomorrow.
Excellent. Actually, no, I'm just going to quickly comment on Sean's. I'm going to comment on Sean's comment. I 100% agree that Fonseca feels the need to just absolutely obliterate the ball at every single opportunity and really struggles to add any sort of variety when hitting forehands. You know, you see it all the time with Alcaraz that he throws in the one that has that net clearance that kind of pushes them back even further with the depth. But Fonseca's just constantly trying to just absolutely pummel the forehand, and, you know, 45% of the time it works, but, you know, that other 55% that's causing him points, and that's causing him games, you know, ultimately, especially on break points, I feel. And, you know, it looks amazing when Fonseca saves a break point with an absolutely huge forehand down the line, but it looks even worse when the forehand goes into the bottom of the net on break point, you know? So I feel like if you can add that bit of variety on the forehand, you'll be so much more dangerous. And unless either of you two have anything else to say, I believe that is all from us today. I will be back tomorrow with those 2 watch songs. Thank you very much, Carson.
Yeah, thank you, Fergus. Thanks, Damien.
Thanks.
And I'm going to predict that John is going to take about 10 seconds to find the video.
The producer.
The producer will take about 10 seconds to find the video. And we will see you all very, very
Of course, we meant Joan, our friend, lady friend.
Yes,
Joan.
our lady friend. Yeah, indeed.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.